Hey, well, welcome everybody to this event, Conscious Cafe Global, and just muting everybody here. Tonight we have got a fantastic event with Dr. Dina Glouberman, how to overcome your fears of the future and find your inner courage. This is a wonderful workshop. We've worked many times with Dina before, and we're going to do image work with her, which is something that she's pioneered, and we're going to look at tools for reimagining the future, which is I think it's an essential tool of life. Let me just tell you a bit about Dr. Dina. She's a visionary co-founder of Skiros Holistic Holidays on the Greek island of Skiros. I don't know whether any of you have been there. I went there many years ago. An absolutely wonderful place. She's a psychotherapist and author of many classic books. One of those, her early book, is Life Choices, Life Changes. She's written a great book called The Joy of Burnout. There's a lot loaded into that title there. She's also the founder of the Aurora Center for Imagework in Puglia, Italy. And I think she's in Italy as we speak. An internationally known psychotherapist, coach, consultant, and pioneering specialist in burnout and in imagery. She's got a fantastic new diploma course, which I'm sure she'll tell us about starting later this year. So I'm going to invite Dr. Dina, you to hold this space. I'm going to hand over to you. And yeah, well, let's give her all a nice Conscious Cafe welcome on here. There you go. You unmute yourself and I'll spotlight you.
Thank you. So, okay. You know, the thing about all that lockdown and COVID was it did open up this space for these online events. And actually, I do love them. I mean, I probably love more being in the same room with somebody, but there's something very exciting about being able to be with people from all over the world and so on and so forth. And I'm going to invite you to just look around at each other and smile and send your love and realize we're all together, all on a path, and that can, you know, that we're always doing that. We're always connecting to people that are far away, and not to just be swayed by looking at these little boxes and thinking that we're all separated. We are all together here doing this thing, and you're going to feel that. I'm just going to say a little bit about this exercise and also about how I work with things in these groups. The thing I want to say about this exercise is I started interviewing. I was actually about to write a book about the future and the fear of the future, and I started interviewing people, and I discovered something really interesting as I interviewed people, which was that people's terrible fears of the future were not about the future, and that they were not about the future, and they were not about the real event that they were worried about. I began to see that in every fear picture, there was a future person who was collapsed, who was small, who was young, who was powerless, who was unable to cope. And I realized that the secret of our extreme fears of the future, not the sort of reasonable ones that we need to really act on, but the extreme ones that make us really anxious and are difficult to cope with, are about the feeling that we won't be able to cope with it, and these pictures of the future, which we have, are really pictures based on the past. They're not really even pictures of the future. So we're actually seeing a picture of ourselves that's based on a past experience. For example, I worked with somebody who saw his fear was about what was going to happen at the end of the summer when he wasn't going to have work and he'd be penniless and so on. His picture of himself was as a little boy standing by a train station. And it turned out it was about a time that he was waiting for his father to come, and he was afraid his father wouldn't come and they would miss it. So the picture was from the past, and the fear was the fear of a little boy who's not going to be able to cope with what's happening. So I started to work with, how do we get people to come back to themselves? And I have this idea that we need to send people both compassion for their pain and limitation and respect for their magnificence. In other words, being scared or vulnerable and so on isn't a deal breaker. We can still be wonderful at the same time. And this is what we don't know inside. I always felt myself, and I'm sure many of you, that when I feel bad, I'm a hopeless creature. And when I feel great, then I'm this great creature. But actually, it's all me. It's all me. So, basically, that's what we're going to do. And how I work is I do the exercise with the whole group. I would like to do a demonstration, but we don't really have time for that. So I will do the exercise with the whole group, but I will ask you if you want to share something. Like I'm going to ask, for example, who wants to tell me tell us what the fear picture is, and then I would ask you to unmute and just say what it is. And this way, it's what I call the shared world of imagery. We are sharing with each other as we have the experience. It's not like in the old days we used to be taken through an experience. I used to go to a group and lie down, and I'd have an image, a fantasy, and then I'd come back and share it. No, we're sharing as we go along. We're all doing it. It's like I'm in my dream and you're in yours, and we're sharing. So I'm going to ask you sometimes, not anytime you feel like it, but when I say who'd like to share, that would be great. And Gina will call on people to unmute. Okay, anybody have any questions so far? No? And you know, there are two ways to raise your hand. One is to raise your hand, and the other is, I think, in reactions or something, you can raise your hand. I think either of them are fine.
We can put things in the chat. And Dina, is how do we get people to come back to themselves? Are you going to tackle that now or later? You mentioned about getting people to come back to themselves.
Yeah, so we're going to do that in the exam, but the basic principle is we're going to look at that future person with compassion for their pain and limitation and respect for their magnificence. That is the basic, that's what I call the look. And it's really transformative. And anybody who's not got their video showing, it'd be great if you would, because it does help us feel that we're in a group of life people. And also if you're having a hard time or having a good time, then we can all see that, we can all share. Sometimes it's not possible because of their situation. Okay, so I'm just going to start and just ask if, I'm going to ask you first to think of a fear that you'd like to work with. And it should be the kind of fear that makes you anxious and that you're afraid you won't be able to cope with. It doesn't have to be your worst possible fear, but it can be, depending on how brave you're feeling at this moment. You know, I mean, when I work with people, normally I do say, what's your worst fear? And people have pretty bad worst fears, but up to you. But take a fear that you know you feel anxious about and you're afraid you're not going to be able to cope. And if you've got a fear in mind, would you raise a hand so I know you're with me? If you've got a fear in mind. Okay, great. Is there anybody who needs any help with the fear? Okay, so I'd just like to ask a few people just to say what your fear is. So could you raise your hand, your virtual or real hand, if you're willing to share? That would be great to hear from a few people.
Lise, do you want to share? That's to unmute. Unmute.
Yeah, thank you. No, good opportunity. Sorry, it's a pretty major fear in my book. So 3 years ago, I had an operation for ovarian cancer. I was very, very lucky. I've only got a 5% chance of recurrence, but obviously it's there. And then 2 years ago, my husband walked out on me. So I'm on my own, and I have this real fear of being ill and dying on my own. And that's, in terms of images, I saw one of the clips of, it was Jade, wasn't it? You know, with the cervical cancer, or whatever it was that she took videos of as she was going through her condition. And I saw a clip with her, you know, somebody trying to get her out of the bath and just, you know, in an awful state and unable to do anything. And I must admit that image is just stuck with me.
So Lisa, and I'm going to ask people kind of just to focus on I mean, it's great to hear it all, but it's just that we're in a short time. No, that's fine. It was very good to hear that. I want to hear, just when you have this fear, what's the fear picture of you ill and alone? What is the picture? The picture of yourself.
I picture myself being very weak, very feeble, and unable to move around. And I picture myself curled up on a corner or in a bed and just, yeah.
Curled up and just
curled up and abandoned is
and
how
abandoned.
I feel.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So can you see that is the picture that we need to work with? Okay, and that's the picture we need to heal in a way. It's the picture. It's not the event.
Yeah.
It's the picture. Okay, so that's great. Let's hear a few more fear pictures, and thank you for sharing about all that. And
Joan has got her hand up here.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll ask Joan and mute. Yeah.
Mine's quite similar, actually. So I'm living with a rare form of blood cancer, which is incurable. And I suppose, apart from a stem cell transplant, which is a fairly horrible experience to go through and may or may not work. So I guess my underlying fear is just fear of death and having unresolved things that I haven't done that I would like to do.
Okay, so can you tell me, when you're seeing yourself in this feared picture, what comes to mind and heart? Because those are words, but I want to hear the picture.
I suppose I feel helpless.
No, how do you look? Let's look at that person.
Okay.
We're going to call that person the future self. Remember, it's not you now. We're going to see it's a separate person. That's your future self. What is future Joan looking like?
Thin, pale, immobile, needy.
Needy, yeah. And the worst of it is?
Probably being needy.
Needy, being needy. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you, Joan. And obviously, you see, what I'm trying to say is, obviously, this is a real fear. We would all be frightened of that. But there is a way to see the future so that it doesn't make you quite that anxious and that makes you feel that, and it's really about believing that you'll know what to do, how to cope, that you'll have your resources. Right now, you don't. You're needy, you're helpless. Yeah, and that's the worst of it. It's worse than being ill.
Yeah.
Yeah, being needy is worse than being ill.
It is.
That's the terrible truth, even though we wouldn't say so objectively. Okay, one more person, a fear picture.
Sally's got her hand up.
Okay, where's Sally? I can find you. Yeah, Sally?
Mute. Yeah, mine seems very unimportant in comparison to the other two. I'm actually in this at the moment because I'm in the process of trying to move from where I am in Kent back to the southwest of England to be partly to downsize and free up some money, which I need, and the other is to be nearer to my family. And my fear has been, and I've been really anxious about this, is just getting it right.
Okay, but let's see I want to see the fear picture of you at your worst in the future. What are you going to look like?
I'm going to look like somebody who,
Or future Sally. We're going to say, what does future Sally look like?
I'd look like someone who's not happy.
She. Let's call her she. Okay. I
She.
want to separate, and can you all hear this? I'm present, Dina. I have a future, Dina, not the same person. Okay. But that's the first step. Okay. So what does future Sally look like?
She just looks very unhappy because she's not where she thought she wanted to be. She's in surroundings she doesn't like. These things haven't worked out the way she wanted it to.
And how is she reacting to it?
Just feeling very unhappy with things.
She's unhappy, and what? What's the worst of it?
Regret, I suppose.
Regret. She's got it wrong.
Yeah.
She's got it wrong. Okay. So that's the worst of it, is the regret. If only I'd done it differently, it would be okay.
Yeah.
Something like that. Okay. Thank you very much, Sally. And everyone's fear is everyone's fear. And the anxiety is anxiety. And we all have it. Okay. Is there anybody else who's dying to tell their fear picture? But you just have to tell the fear picture. Okay. So Austin, yeah?
I'll do mine very quickly. So very quickly, 2.5 years ago, my wife got diagnosed with cancer. So she's kind of recovering. And in the last 2 years, last year and a half, actually, I got diagnosed with ADHD and my two sons got diagnosed with autism. And it kind of feels to us in our family that our lives have got immeasurably harder. All at the same time as kind of trying to make a shift in work, because I kind of know the life I had, I don't really want anymore. I know I want to go and do something different, but I don't know.
I'm just going to stop you, Austin, because I just want the fear picture now.
My fear is of failure and not being able to provide for my family.
Okay, thank you.
It feels like I'm paralyzed.
Okay, so when you look at, and again, we're going to call future Austin somebody else, okay?
Yeah.
How does future Austin look?
In currently, he looks like he is kind of curled up, paralyzed, and has failed to provide for his family.
And what's the worst of it?
The worst of it is not being able to provide for my family, I think.
Is that he can't provide for his family, and that's his biggest failure. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Austin. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so are we beginning to see a picture of all these future pictures of people who are feeling unhappy because they have failed, or they have, whatever, been abandoned, so on and so forth. Okay, now I'm going to ask you all to take that fear of yours and do what we've just been doing, is look at the picture of the future person that you are. See it as someone else. See it as your future self. It's not now. It's the future self. It's the imagined future self. Because if you remember, it could be that picture is from the past. So some other time that you failed or were abandoned or whatever, as a child or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to get a very picture of the future self. And when you've got a picture and you see how the future self is reacting, that is really important. And I'm going to ask you again, what's the worst of it? What's the worst of what's going on for that person? And when you've got that, could you raise a hand? Could you raise a hand when you've got it? Okay. Is anybody having a problem getting this picture? Anybody need help? Okay.
Catherine's asked for help, put her hand up.
Okay, where's Catherine?
Catherine, here's, she's going to spotlight. There's Catherine, ask for help.
Oh, Catherine, okay.
No, I was okay. Sorry, I've got no voice. I've got laryngitis. I was okay put my hand up to say I've got my picture.
Oh, you got your picture. Okay, great. Okay, so you've got this picture. Now, I'm going to say to all of you, to each and every one of you, I want you to hear that. I'm talking to each of you. Present self, the present self. So it's the present Sue, the present Kim, the present Allison, and so on. I'm going to take your hand and we are going to go into that future picture. We're going to visit that future self. That's why you needed to know that it's another person. Some of you may want to close your eyes. I can see Jones closing your eyes. A good idea. Close your eyes maybe and really see that picture. And I want you to go with me into the future picture and introduce us to that future person. So for example, if Judy's going in to see future Judy, she'll say, I'm Judy from your past, and I've come here to help. I'm here with Dina, who also wants to help. Is that kind of thing. So you're going to visit the future person, you're going to introduce yourself and introduce me. And when you've done that, I want you to raise your hand. I want you to raise your hand so I can see you've done that. You're in the future picture. Okay, raise your hand if you're there. Okay, great. Okay. Now, we've seen what this person looks like. And we want to remind them who we are. Now, I'm going to remind you of the look. And it's not just a look, it's how we're going to talk to this person. So I'm going to be looking at that future person with you, with compassion for their pain, because undoubtedly they're in trouble. And I'm compassionate for their pain and for their limitations and for all that is stopping them from being okay, whether it's a physical problem, whether it's a financial problem, whether it's their emotional problem. I have compassion for them, but I also, at the same time, have respect for their magnificence. I know how fabulous that person is. We know how fabulous that person is. So allow your eyes to close. Allow your eyes to close and relax. And with me, hold my hand, talking to that future self. I want you to look at that future self with compassion for their pain and limitation and respect for their magnificence. And respect for their magnificence. And I want you to talk to them. I'll give you a moment to talk to them, to tell them, I'm really sorry about it. Whatever you want to say, that you're really sad about what's going on for them, but actually to remember how fabulous they are and remind them how fabulous they are. The same time that they're in trouble, they're also fabulous. So could you do that now? Talk out loud. You're all muted, so you can talk out loud and really connect to this future person and really make them feel, and keep talking until you see the person begins to shift, begins to look a bit different, begins to sit up or whatever. So really go for it. Your job is to get this person to remember who they are. Okay, and I want you to really notice when that person somehow comes back to life again, somehow connects with their resources. And again, does anybody, I'd love to hear from one or two people to share what's happening for you in this conversation. How does the future person look now? How did they change? Anybody want to share? Just raise a hand.
Caroline's raising her hand.
Okay, Caroline. Yeah.
Yeah, the person, the
Future Caroline.
the previous Caroline, who you and I were talking to,
Yeah.
actually turned around and faced us, and she wasn't facing us to start with.
Wow.
So she listened.
She listened. And so you can see her face. You can see future Caroline's face now.
Mm.
How does her face look?
Well, her face is just quiet, but she's looking. She's actually looking at us and hearing.
She's looking. Okay.
Hearing what we're
So your next job is just mute yourself. Keep talking until you get her to smile.
Okay.
Okay. That's your job. Okay. Anyone else want to share? I think Marianne, I saw you. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we went up to my future self, first she was all hunched up and sort of in rags, and as I was speaking to her, gradually her posture changed and she stood up more straight and her eyes started to shimmer.
Great. And what was the best thing you said to her, Marianne, that really got her?
I think that she's a magnificent soul and that she's immortal and the life in her is very much alive.
Great. That's beautiful. Okay. And she got it. Okay. One more person want to share what happened to your future self and what was the magic trick?
Anybody got to put their hand up? Any hands going up anymore? Oh, look, yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah.
Okay.
I'm going to spotlight Sarah. Spotlight. Here we go, Sarah. Unmute.
Hi, hello. Yes, when we met my future self, she was a very scary image for me, lying at the bottom of the stairs, having fallen. That's one of my images about old age. I started to talk to her and say that we were here to help, and that felt compassion towards her, but also to remind her that she is magnificent and fabulous. She turned her head to listen, and it did feel like she became more alive and more lively. It's just the start of the process, but
Yeah, you have to keep talking. Yeah. So keep talking. Joan, do you mind if I ask you how you're doing?
I just found it really emotional.
Yeah, it is emotional.
Yeah.
And are you winning?
Not yet, I don't think.
Okay, what's happening?
We were, holding her hand and able to talk to her. And I did get a sense that she felt a bit lighter.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, and I did tell her, that she was wonderful and magnificent. And
you believed it when you said it. You really got that.
I don't know whether I did.
Okay, maybe that's the magic thing. You have to really believe it. Otherwise, she won't respond. So she is amazing, isn't she?
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, so give her the credit that's due to her.
Yeah.
She deserves that.
Yeah.
And, you have to remember that we tend to think if someone's in trouble that they're not as good as someone who's succeeding, and they're more in touch with their deepest being often, and more able to surmount difficulties. She's surmounted enormous difficulties, hasn't she, in her life? So give her the credit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found it very easy to talk to her though.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And you might have to keep talking because this is a big deal we're talking about. Yeah. But if she feels loved and appreciated, it's going to be a totally different story, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now, next thing we're going to do is, if you're ready, I want you to think of other people in your life who think you're, who have compassion for your pain and respect for your magnificence. In other words, people that really love you. And I want you to invite them into the room with you. I want you to think of at least one person who loves you. And it doesn't have to be a person who's alive. It doesn't have to be even a physically kind of living person. It could be your favorite spiritual guide, you know, anyone that can come into that room and love you and remind you how great you are, even though you're in trouble. So it doesn't have to be a real living person. It could be the person that died loving you. It could be anyone. It could be the Buddha. Anyone you want. It's now time to invite them in, and one after another, invite anyone you can think of into the room with you. Okay, if you're ready to do that, raise your hand so I know you're with me. You're ready to do. Great. Okay, go for it. Invite. Name the first person. So-and-so, come into the room now. We need you. So-and-so, come into the room now. We need you. Okay, and if you've got at least one person, would you raise your hand? And if you got more than one, would you raise your hand? Great. Now, get them all talking to this person. You could have a party. Give out the noisemakers, the drink, the whatever you want to do. Make this fun. Make this a joyful experience. You're lying on your deathbed. Let them come in and cheer you up. Okay? Okay, would anyone like to share what's happening? I'd love to hear from 1 or 2 people. What's happening? Raise your hand.
Anybody want? Oh, Lise wants to share. I'm going to invite her. Spotlight. Unmute yourself. Yeah. Yeah, Lise.
Yeah. So I've got 3 good friends. Got some cocktails going. I'm laughing. Yeah, sat up. Still physically look the same. She is sat up. Got a spark in the eye. Smiling. Yes.
Great. Oh, great. Okay. Anyone else? Love to. Oh, I did see someone raising. Yeah, Alison.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Alison, we can't hear you. Alison, are you speaking? No, not you. It's a no.
No.
We can't hear you. Yeah. Okay, we can't hear her. Don't know.
You don't know why.
Don't know
okay.
Why. I don't know. See if anybody else.
But you're having a good time. Okay. Yeah. You're dancing. This is like charade. Yeah, you were dancing. Okay. And Marianne?
Yeah.
It just made me laugh. So she's laughing and dancing and smoking.
Why not? It's time. Great, thank you. And I'm just going to check you out, Joan. What's happening?
was lovely actually, because one or two people came in, and then more and more people came in that I thought of, and suddenly the room was getting fuller and fuller, and we were talking about all the good times we'd shared
Oh,
together. And
oh,
so
yeah. Yeah. So you're inviting also all the great memories in the room as well. How wonderful. Okay, great. And one more person want to say? Austin, how you doing?
I'm actually struggling with this bit.
I thought you were struggling. Okay, but tell me what's happening.
I actually thought I wanted my mum.
Yeah. Have her.
And my dad.
Have them. What's the problem? They don't have to be alive.
No, they're divorced though, so they don't speak to each other. So
Oh, they're alive.
I'm not sure there's much partying going on.
Are you having a problem because they're battling?
I think so.
Put them in two separate sides of the room.
Separate rooms, yeah.
Tell them they can't speak to each other. Well, you know, they're here for you. Tell them you're here for me. Stop your arguments. Who else is there? Anyone else?
My sister.
Your sister.
Yeah.
And is she?
She's okay. She's okay.
She's okay.
Yeah, and
okay.
I've also got my oldest friend from school there, and he's just
okay. Great.
So
how's future Austin looking now?
He could be better. But he's looking hopeful, I think.
He's looking hopeful.
Yeah.
So he is better than he was.
I think, yeah. He kind of needs quite a lot of support.
Yeah. And
that's what he needs. Actually, that's what he needs. He needs quite a lot of support.
And are you going to give it to him?
Yeah.
Could you tell him that?
So. Yeah.
Could you tell him that? I'm here to give you support.
Yeah, I can. I'm trying to.
Great. Okay. So what I'm going to do is invite you to come back to the present first. And in the present, can you do the close your eyes, come back to the present and look at your future fear picture now. See how it looks. See how that picture looks. Might not be 100%, might be 20%, 50%, 2%. How many people have a fear picture that is less scary now? How many are less scared by their fear picture? Okay. Even it doesn't have to be 100% because you're going to have to take this home and work with it if it's not 100%. So if you don't want to do any more work, you better make it as 100% now. Okay, anyone having a problem? Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Now close your eyes again. And I want you to go now with just your consciousness into the future person. Become future person, future Sally, future Judy, future Catherine, whoever. Go and become that future self and look at the present self. Look back at the present self. So can you breathe into being the future self and look at the present self? If you've done that, can you raise a hand so I know you're with me? Great, okay. And now, as the future self, I want you to give present self a message that's going to help them not end up miserable and in trouble, or help them to be less frightened, or whatever it is. Send a message. I'm going to ask you a question. What can you see about present self that he or she doesn't know about themselves? And what can you whisper that's going to help them? Okay, so do that. What can you see? And what can you whisper? And if you're ready, make an agreement with them. Okay, does anybody want to say what you're telling present self? Show of hands. Anybody want to say what you're telling present self? Joan?
Joan, yeah. Spotlight, Joan.
Yeah, I'm just telling you that whatever comes your way in life, that you have the inner strength to deal with it.
Great. Great. That sounds great. It's just what she needs to know. And
Yeah.
you do, don't you?
Yes.
Yes, you do. I can see that. Okay. Now I want you to come back to the present again and receive that message from the future self. Receive that message. And if you're ready to shake hands on an agreement with the future self about what you're going to do so that you don't have to have that future that you were so afraid of. The thing might happen, but you won't respond that way. So if you're ready to shake hands, I want to see you shake hands with your future self. Say, okay, I'm with you. Great. Great. And I'm going to count up from 1 to 5. And I suggest when I say 5, you open your eyes, relaxed and alert, bringing all this understanding back with you. 1, 2, coming to the surface, 3, 4, 5. Eyes open, stamp your feet, come back to this room. Are you with us? Stamp your feet some more. Some of you look a bit dazed. Okay. So, are you ready to have a little breakout group? Show of hands. You ready for a little breakout group to share? Okay. So here's what I'm gonna ask you to do. You're gonna go into breakout groups, maybe with 2 or 3 people, mainly 3 people, but might be 2 twos or something.
Yeah.
And I want you to have one person who's a timekeeper to make sure that you each have, say we have 10 minutes. So if you had 3 people, you could have 3 minutes each and a minute to share, or 2 minutes each and more time to share, up to you. But time it to make sure that one person doesn't get all the time and suddenly you realize your time's up, which can happen. And I want you each to, well, introduce yourself, first of all, if you don't know each other's names, and then to say, don't tell the whole story because we haven't got really time for it, but really reflect on what are you left with? What can be different now? What's important about what just happened? Okay, what are you left with? What's important? What can be different? That kind of question. Okay, are you up for that? And Gina.
Dina, I'm going to, we're 19, excluding you, so I'm going to do 6 groups. I will stay back because somebody might put their hand up and I'll be there to help them. So you might end up as 2 if somebody doesn't join you, because we want you to join, but if somebody who's not got the camera on decides not to join, you should be 2. If you end up as 1, signal me. So I'll do 6 groups.
Great.
Great. Okay, and I'll give you a 1-minute warning at 9 minutes.
I'm seeing 18 participants. Does that?
Somebody's left. Somebody's left, so there'll definitely be at least 1 group of 2. Some people who don't have the cameras on don't always want to share in breakout, so there we go.
Okay.
Open all rooms. And you obviously won't be joining one. Okay, here we go. Please enjoy to join. Okay, so room 4 is just Lise on her own with you, Dina. Do you want to join Lise? Or do you want to stay back?
I could join these.
Okay, then you go ahead and join, because there are other groups where it's just ended up, she's the 2 with you. So hopefully everybody will. Okay. What's this one? Unassigned. Alison, can you hear me? Do you want to be assigned to a group? I'm going to assign you to room 4 if you want to join. Assign to room 4. I don't know why you weren't. Unassigned, join. 1, 2, 3, 4. Joined, Alison, not joined. Okay, we're good. Oh, stop recording. Okay, and people are coming in from the rooms. Okay.
Okay, welcome back, everyone.
You're welcome.
Well, this is time. I've left quite a bit of time for people to share how it's going, how it went, what surprised you, what was great, what was not so great, or to ask for help. I particularly like to be available if anybody needs some help. If that the thing has left you stuck in some way, I want to be there for you if you want to say, but also, you know, say if you've had a great time and you're walking out of here minus one terrible fear. That'd be nice to hear as well. Anything you want to say. But you have to raise your hand so we know you want to speak. Alison. Alison?
I'm mostly to say hello because I've got my voice now.
Oh, yeah.
No, the microphone wasn't working before. I don't know what else to say really, except I'm just reminded mostly of the simple powerfulness, you know, of using imagery and how lovely it is to be able to just conjure up such a different feeling through holding the pictures rather than struggling with the words. So
yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and it's just so immediate and present, and
it's kind of like seeing is believing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but tell me, what was your fear and how are you feeling now?
Oh, my fear was of my husband dying because he's not very well, and being left without him, and just how I would be in that. And I feel more resourced now because it was good to have my sister and my friend, who are both deceased, coming back to me into my room, and just knowing that the presence of them was still in me as my husband's would be in me if he did.
Great, yes.
You know, so it was just a good reminder. Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else? Share or need help?
Sally's hand's gone up.
Sally?
You need to unmute. I can't unmute you. Sally, unmute yourself.
Okay, yes. Sorry, I always forget to do that. I'm slightly confused now because I'm not sure that my fear was my fear. So I'm still trying to kind of work it out. Because the conversation I got into with the two people in the breakout, both were saying that they were surprised how it did relate very much to their past as when they were kids. And I suspect it probably does with me too. So I'm still kind of thinking about it.
What was the fear, Sally?
What was the fear I said originally?
Yeah.
Making a mistake, I think, was my fear. But maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's more about, oh gosh, yes, emotional, woo, being alone. Actually, I think that's something to do with it.
And do you feel? And did you invite people in and all that?
Yeah, and actually that was really lovely because my whole family came. I invited my 4 sons. And then they all turned up with wives and children and everything. And it was lovely. And we all went out into the garden. So, you know, that was perfect. And that's something that doesn't happen here where I am at the moment. So I think that's all part of it. Oh, gosh, I can't believe there's all this emotion rising up. But yeah.
Yeah. So it's really great to let that picture stand.
Yeah. What, the one of being with my family?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because the original thing was about making a mistake, wasn't it? But you know, having this family all around you, you know, you must have done something right.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, funnily enough, while we're talking, I've got a message from my son who's going to be nearest to me when I make this move. So, you know, there you go.
So there you go. So he's with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you, Sally. Anyone else want to share? Speak to us. Yeah, Joan.
I don't think I feel stuck. And the messages that came through were really powerful, and I feel that hopefully, you know, like life's a roller coaster at the moment, and hopefully when I'm at the dip in the roller coaster, that the messages of, and the images as well, of having that resilience, and the image of that room full of people and being completely surrounded by love will be sustaining and nurturing. Because I think one of the things on my journey is that you can feel terribly alone and not wanting to share your emotions with people because you're always protecting the people that you love from the raw emotions. And so what happens is that then you suffer more because you're not sharing. So that's something I've got to kind of think about.
You know what, Joan? I want to say something about that, and I'm talking to all of you. I think this idea about compassion for your pain, limitation, and respect for your magnificence has something to do with the not sharing. Is that we don't want to burden other people. We don't, but really we don't want them to feel sorry for us. You know, that's a big part of it, and it's very hard to really get it. That that you may be very scared, very unhappy, whatever, and you're still fantastic, and they still love you and think you're great. And that's hard to get. And that they actually want to be there with you and would feel bad if they realized you were suffering and you hadn't told them.
But the thing is that I do share with them, and I think unfortunately some members of my family who I know love me dearly just find it too difficult to cope with, and then I feel that they don't love me. But I do share, you know.
Yeah. Well, the people that can't take it, I would share less with, but you find the people that can.
Yeah.
You know, and do it. But how many people feel that they tend, when you feel bad about something, that you feel it's almost like you lose all your positive traits? You're just this miserable old so-and-so. How many people find that happens? Yeah, and then you think people are going to feel sorry for you and everything else. Okay, so I think that's really important to remember, that it's all happening at the same time. I'm miserable and I'm fantastic at the same time. Okay. Anyone else want to share something? Yeah. Sarah?
Yes, I felt, in my group, I said I felt more resourced. My image was me very elderly and helpless, having fallen, you know.
Yeah, or down to the bottom of the stairs, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A symbol of being helpless and, you know, not looked after. And okay, I feel there is no, you know, magic wand to make everything kind of, you know, wonderful, but I felt more resourced and more cheerful to sort of look out for networks of support, but and also sort of trusting more that I have family, or some family, you know, and people who would look out for me, and even I love what you said about, you know, you can call in spiritual entities as well, you know, like guardian angel and guides and that, you know, yeah, beings like that. But I feel I was left with the feeling that, okay, I can start putting in place little actions now and seeing what's out there. I don't know what is, but, you know, and because I'm not elderly right now, but I'm not young either. So, you know, a mixture of taking action and feeling.
And what did the future Sarah say to you?
Oh golly, what did she say to me? I think she said, you know, I think that's what gave me the idea to take action, you know, that, you know, I need to be part of something that's bigger than me, that will make me feel better, you know, to feel I'm connected, to whether it's an organization or a spiritual group or a local group, you know, yeah, connection was
great.
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting that you think that the fear is that you're going to fall down the stairs.
Well, it's partly, yeah.
And it is, and it's not that couldn't happen. It could happen, but the thing that's making you feel so bad isn't really that.
Yeah.
It's the feeling that you're left on your own with that.
Yeah. Like nobody will come and help.
And nobody will come. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that you can do something about now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is great.
That is the main fear. Yeah.
You see, once a fear, this is one of the things I was saying about the beginning, that there are different kinds of fears. When a fear is like reasonable, it makes sense to do something about it. And it's useful. You don't want to have no fears because some of them are useful to you. But it's these anxiety-producing fears that we react to in a way that is not helpful. They knock us out of connection with our resources. They may make us increase the wrong kind of security. They give us sleepless nights or whatever. And if we have healed the deep feelings that have caused that terrible anxiety, we're left with a practical problem that needs to be solved, and we could begin to solve it now. So that's we're turning the extreme fears into reasonable things that we can do something about, if there's something we can do about it. Yeah. Okie dokie. Anything else anybody wants to say? Anybody need some help? Nobody needs some help. Austin, how are you doing?
I'm kind of better.
Tell us what that means.
I really enjoyed our breakout actually, and somebody said, they kind of reflect that often they kind of, when they're struggling, they kind of hold it all to themselves, and I have a real habit of doing that. When I'm struggling, I keep it to myself. But I'll solve it, and it never ends well. And I so describe myself as being on the cliff edge, knowing my past and not really wanting it anymore, knowing there could be a future which would be better, but afraid of jumping. And actually, when I had my conversation with myself, I say, no, you will be okay. It will be okay. You are okay. You are good. You'll be fine. Now,
funnily enough, Austin, I did think about, and I've been standing here thinking, am I going to do it? I have an exercise called jumping off cliffs.
You told me this in Titsa last year, actually.
Sorry?
You told me this in that Titsa last year.
But did you do it?
No, I didn't jump off the cliff. I've been standing on the cliff edge for about 9 months.
Okay.
Probably.
Who's willing to, I can just, but we're going to have to do this really quickly. Who's willing to step off a cliff? Which means, think of something that feels like a cliff and we're gonna and the one thing I'm gonna say to you is I've never had anyone come to any harm when they step off a cliff. But I do have people very scared, even though it's only so-called only imaginary. If you're willing to do it, raise your hand now. Who's willing to do it? Okay. So this is a really quick one. So you've got to take all your courage in hand. You willing to do that? Okay. And it might be easier to actually stand up. But okay, first close your eyes. And I want you to imagine a cliff. And this cliff is something to do with something in your life that feels like what Austin's saying, that you're standing there and it feels impossible, too risky, too dangerous. Okay, so if you've got your cliff, can you raise a hand so I know you're with me? Okay. Now, next thing is I want you just to look over the cliff and tell me what you can see. Okay, I'm not going to ask you to tell me with long term, but can you look over? How many people see that it would be impossible to step off that cliff because it's very steep, it's very high, there's rocks, there's this, there's that. How many people can see this is an impossible cliff? Okay. Some of you not raising your hand? You are, okay. Okay. So this is an impossible cliff. You can't step off it. You got that? Okay. Now, I want you to step back, and to make this more powerful, it's good to stand up, actually. If you're willing to stand up. Okay? And I want you to see the cliff, and then I want you to step back from that cliff. Step back. Okay. And if anybody needs me to be holding your hand, I'm there. I'm holding your hand. Okay? Now, I want you to start to walk towards that cliff. Start to walk towards that cliff. Raise your hand when you're standing on the edge. And then I'm going to count to 3, and we're all going to step off it together at the same time. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3. Go. Go. Off you go. Off the cliff. And find out what happens. And I'm sure that some of you are flying and some of you are, the ground has come up to meet you or whatever. There's a famous thing by, what's his name, who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull about this. Okay, and then when you're ready, come back to the top of the cliff. And just come and sit down, and I'd like to just hear from a few people. Now, that was the quickest I've ever done this exercise, so if it didn't work, don't worry. Anybody want to say what happened when you stepped off the cliff? I'd love to hear. Sorry, what'd you say, Austin?
I'll be very quick. I chose a cliff with water. I went under the water, and then people dragged me out of the water and helped me.
People helped you.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I've never heard someone who really got in trouble. You got in trouble and got helped, which was probably what you needed.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, Marianne, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I jumped off the cliff into the sea, and I was mesmerized by, the fish and the coral and all the beauty under the water. So I was like, oh, I didn't really want to go back up onto the top of the cliff.
You had a good time.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else?
Caroline?
Yeah, I jumped, and I didn't fly, but I didn't fall.
What happened?
I was just I didn't even have my arms out, actually. I was just sort of suspended, held by something.
Held by something.
Mm.
and how did that thing go? When you come to the end of all the light you have and you step into the darkness of the unknown, one of two things will happen to you. Either something will come forward to meet you, or you'll be taught to fly. And I saw that in that sita on the bar wall. I thought somebody had been to my group had written that, because that's exactly what happens. Anybody get in trouble and find they smashed to the bottom and were dead? Was anyone in trouble? Were you all okay? If you were okay, would you just raise a hand? Okay, great. So that's amazing. I want you to remember this forever. You stepped off a cliff and you were okay. If you can do that, you can do anything. Okay, so we need to have our last 5 minutes. And Gina, can we just,
Yep,
I want to
share the
say
screen.
something.
Yep.
Yeah?
You want me to share the screen now?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
I want to say something to you about my new book, Imagework, where you will find these exercises are all in there.
Have you got your book to show us?
Yeah.
Show the book while you're. Everybody
This is my beautiful book, which the person that did the cover must have known me psychically, because I'm completely in love with sunrises.
I'm going to take a picture. Hold it there, and I'll just take a screenshot. Judy's got it as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's another one. Yeah,
there's another one.
There's 3 of them on the screen.
It's my favorite cover of all my books. This is my absolute favorite cover. And this book is for practitioners who, but a lot of the people who have read the book are not practitioners, and they just find it works for them. And it's all about working with imagery in this way. So, and there's a slight discount on Amazon these days. There was a 45% discount. Now it's like 13%. So if you want to get it now before it changes. What I want to say is also, I have a course coming up, which is a diploma in Imagework. It's online, takes place over a year. And the reason I'm telling you now, partly, is to say and it's really for practitioners, is that if you work with people and you want to learn how to do this and many other things with the imagination, I had until May 16th, the super early bird discount of £200 on the course. And I decided to say to people in this Conscious Cafe that if you really want to do it, just don't do if you don't want to, because there's a bargain. But if you really want to do it, then if you book within the next week, you can get that super early bird discount. So just say on the thing, I'm from the Conscious Cafe course, okay? And it'd be great to see some of you on the course. So, and I think we got to finish any moment now. So, any last words from people? Gina, would you like to say something? Judy, would you like to say something?
Judy? Judy, you're muted. Ask to unmute.
Yeah, we haven't heard from Judy.
Yeah.
Well,
the founder presence here.
it's lovely to see everybody, and as always we have exciting events continuing to come up. Please look carefully at our newsletters, because if you're near one of our local groups, you will also have the opportunity to meet up in person if you'd like to do that. And if you're near London, we do usually run a walk every month. We had a fabulous walk on Hampstead Heath led by Caroline, who's here this evening, and we're planning an online event for July, which I hope we can get organised. So we look forward to seeing some of you in person, and do please share with friends and colleagues who you think would like Conscious Cafe. Thank you.
Cool. And that's wonderful. Dina, that was, I'm just going to speak on behalf of everybody and say that was really powerful. These are the skills and tools that we need to have and practice. As you say, you may not get 100% on the first go. We need to be able to practice these and share them with others because they're simple. You know, separating.
It's very simple. It's very.
You know, here I am now, and there's the future, and what is it I'm really frightened of, and how it really affects me.
Very simple. That's exactly it. It's so simple. You see, for me, I just had to get the understanding that we were blinded by the thought of this. You know, I have a client over many years, comes and goes, who has MS, and her sister was lying there paralyzed in the bed in the hospital. She's MS, and she's bipolar as well, so she has a hard time. And we did this, and her fear was that she'd be lying there completely paralyzed and, you know, feeling like death, you know, in the bed. Now, that's a real fear. She has a sister who's like that now. Who wouldn't be scared of that? But by the time she'd finished doing this exercise, she wasn't scared of it anymore because she knew she would still be there. See, we think we're not going to be there anymore. We're going to be some collapsed self. When she realized she'd still be there, she let go of that fear, even though it's the most terrible thing. So we think it's the fear, makes us think that it's the real thing. It's actually ourself we're afraid of losing. It's not the money or the health or all those things, of course, are important, but really, it's ourselves. Yeah.
We can come up with all sorts of fears, can't we? We're very clever at coming up with fears and anxiety. We have to be equally clever and smart at finding ways of diminishing them. I've put the link to your course in the chat. If anybody's interested, they can click direct from there. And I think all that remains to say is, hallelujah. Thank you. I think we can show our appreciation and wave.
Dina, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Every time I'm privileged enough to come to an event with you, I always learn so much, and the learning stays with me for a long time. So it's been a great privilege for all of us tonight. And anyone who can help anyone else to overcome their fears has a great gift, and all of us are very grateful.
And you all have that ability now. You all have it, because I've just given you a very simple one. If you do get the book, you'll find it in the book under one of the healing exercises in the back part of the book. It's simple. You can do it with anyone, but you have to love them and respect them when you do it. It has to be the real thing. You've got to really feel it. You can't just do it mechanically. And we saw that, you know, that you've got to really know that these people are wonderful, as well as unhappy or in trouble. Okay, so do it. Find somebody to help, and you'll feel you got the resources now. Okay.
It's a great way to learn, isn't it? Immediately, rather than think I don't know this, is to try it on somebody else.
Yeah.
Because you learn all the time, don't you? You don't have to be a huge expert, just to teach yourself by sharing with others. It's a great way to anchor new tools and new skills.
And it's a ripple effect. We can help people. And nowadays there's so much fear around that anything we can do to help with that is great.
Yes, it's our age now, isn't it? This age that we're in, the words trauma and anxiety are just everyday parlance now, whereas they weren't. I mean, now it's just everybody seems to be anxious. People are recognizing they've had traumas and anxieties, and it's just in the language. So we have to bring in those tools, and this is such a simple one. So thank you. And we've got the recording, which I'm now going to stop. Stop recording. That's it.